How's it going, guys? Matt Laidlaw here, coming to you from Laidlaw's Harley-Davidson, LA area's oldest, largest, and finest Harley-Davidson dealership. So I had a request that kept coming in. People wanted to see the V-Rod and Night Rod special. So that's the review I'm going to be doing today. So here is a 2016 V-Rod Night Rod special. You may ask why I'm not using a 2017. Well, in the 2017 model year, Harley-Davidson did still make V-Rods, but they made a very, very limited quantity of V-Rods. This model year, I did not get a single 2017 V-Rod. So yeah, I'm using a 2016. Between the 2016 and 17 model years, there were virtually no changes at all except for color options. So let me start off with how we got to the V-Rod and the Night Rod. So in 2001 and the 2002 model year, Harley-Davidson first introduced the V-Rod. It's based on the VR1000, which is the bike in the upper left-hand corner there. So Harley-Davidson and Porsche, the European automaker, actually collaborated on this bike and created the V-Rod. So in the upper left-hand corner there, this is a 2002 model year V-Rod here that I'm showing. So this is the very first year that the V-Rod was put out. And the V-Rod is a big step away from what Harley-Davidson traditionally does on their motorcycles. This is a dual overhead cam, 4 valves per cylinder, 100% water cooled, revs out red lines at 9,000 RPM. So in simple general terms, this bike is one step in the direction of what you'd see more along the lines in the sport bike world. That VR1000, that was Harley-Davidson's bike that they used in like the super bike races. So this motorcycle definitely has a lot more of the high performance technology in it that you're going to see like in some of the higher end sport bikes. So here's a shot of the radiator here, guys. One of the things, as always, Harley-Davidson tries to do is incorporate newer technology, but not have it take away from the aesthetics. So the radiator's definitely pleasing to the eyes, a lot more aesthetically pleasing than a lot of the radiators we see on other manufacturers' motorcycles. This shell up top here, guys, is actually the cover for the airbox, the induction system there. So that where the gas tank would normally be on a motorcycle is now the airbox on this V-Rod. And the gas tank is actually underneath the seat, and I'll be showing that in a minute. So you've got a 5-gallon gas tank on this bike, which has definitely evolved over the years. When the V-Rod first came out, you had like a 3-gallon gas tank, and that was one of the major complaints about this bike that people had, was that they were running out of gas pretty quickly. So a lot of the technology you see on these bikes now has kind of been an evolution through the years that the V-Rod's been out. You've got a really big fat 240 millimeter rear tire back there. This was first introduced on the VRSCDX, where they changed the frame slightly to accommodate this bigger, fatter tire. That tire is now standard on both of the models of V-Rod that they have currently in production. Or maybe they don't have it in production anymore. I really don't know if they're going to make V-Rods next year at all. They haven't said officially that they're going away from it, but I think they kind of implied that in this model year when they said that they're going to start to produce very few. My personal opinion, I think that they're going to start to put more of their resources and time and attention on the street platform, which is that new, more entry-level style bike that Harley-Davidson is really using to try to get some of the entry-level type riders and newer riders to the Harley-Davidson brand. So here's a shot of the instrument cluster. So you got RPM on the left, fuel gauge on the right there, and your speedometer right in the middle there. Very functional instrumentation cluster there. And the seat's pretty comfortable on this bike. You just lift straight up on the seat to access the fuel door there, the fuel cap, I should say. Runs on 91 octane, which is premium fuel by California standards. So you're going to want to run the premium fuel, which is a little bit different octane rating depending on what state or country you live in. Now the V-Rod model designation is VRSC, which stands for V-Twin Racing Street Custom. So every V-Rod, the model designation is going to start with this VRSC, and then the letters after that are going to dictate the model within the V-Rod family that it is. So for example, this bike that I'm on here now, the Night Rod Special, is the VRSCDX. But over the years from 2002 up till the 2017 model year, there's been several different variations. In 2009, they came out with the Muscle, the V-Rod Muscle, which is a VRSCF. So, and then there's been the Street Rod, there's been the VRSCD, which was the first version of the Night Rod. And then in 2007, they came out with what they call the Night Rod Special, which just added more like blacked out cosmetics and everything. But over the years too, like they've applied several upgrades to this motorcycle. For example, like I mentioned earlier, the fatter tire. When it was first introduced, it was an 1130cc engine. It is now a 1250cc engine. In 2005, there was a Screaming Eagle V-Rod that came out that had this 1250cc engine, when the rest of the V-Rods were the 1130. Now all the V-Rods, the two models they have currently, the Muscle and the Night Rod Special, both have the 1250cc engine. And they've applied to other things over the years, like your slipper clutch and your Brembo brakes. This has a 4-piston caliper dual disc in the front, Brembo brakes, single disc in the rear. So the braking power is really good. ABS comes standard on these now. The only option you really have as far as factory options is the smart security system. So you got 2 key fobs. There's no button on them anymore as of 2007, so it's been about 10 years. And they're just proximity sensors. When that sensor is near the bike, the ignition is active. If that sensor is not near the bike, then the ignition is electronically cut. Here's your ignition here on the right side of the bike, and I'm going to kind of demonstrate the locking of it. If you move the notch to 9 o'clock there, it locks it up. And so, yeah, the ignition cannot be turned on without this smart security system. If you leave it in the on position, anybody can just come over, turn the bike onto the ignition position, and ride away on the bike. Here's your fork lock as well. At 6 o'clock, it's unlocked. You'll put the barrel key in and move it up to 12 o'clock, and that locks the fork there. So that, yeah, your fork is locked up and turned to the left. This bike's also equipped with a hydraulic clutch. I've meant to mention that earlier. We'll go ahead and start the bike now. So let me take you guys over to Harley-Davidson.com. I find this is the best way to go over the statistics and things like that a lot of people want to know. Things like the fuel, the power, all that stuff. I don't know why they don't have the starting price on there. The starting price is $17,849. Here's some different shots of, kind of some artistic shots of the bike. This is the Crushed Ice Pearl here. Beautiful looking bike. By the way, guys, the aesthetics and just kind of the look of the V-Rod, it's kind of been a bike that people just love the look of. I mean, people that don't know anything about motorcycles or Harley-Davidsons, they see these things and they're just drawn to them. I mean, the V-Rod is a beautiful motorcycle. So here is the color options. You got the denim black. This is called Velocity Red here. The white is the Crushed Ice Pearl. Again, these are the 2017 colors, guys. The bike I have in the video is a 2016, which is Vivid Black, which they don't offer in the 17 model year. This is called Corona Yellow. So that's a brand new yellow color that's available on a few of the bikes this year. And this is called Crushed Ice Pearl. So yeah, you got 5 different colors this year. Yeah, the V-Rod is kind of an unmistakable looking bike. I mean, there's been some aftermarket companies that have made like kits that bolt onto the V-Rod that make them even more like futuristic, radical looking. But yeah, it's interesting though, because when I have people come in, and obviously I've been selling the V-Rod now for 10 plus years, and it's funny because the people that come in that look for this bike are either the guys that don't know anything about motorcycles, they just know they want to own a motorcycle and they want a Harley-Davidson, or it's a guy that knows a lot about motorcycles. They're a big-time enthusiast that is real, like a gearhead, a real techie guy, motorcycle techie guy, that buy this bike as well. So it's the complete 2 opposite sides of the spectrum that I see buying this motorcycle. The guys that don't know anything about motorcycles, they just know they like the look of it basically, and it just looks fast even though they don't know the first thing about the bike. And the guys that know everything about motorcycles, that really can appreciate just the combination that this is between the Harley-Davidson styling, the finishes, the quality workmanship in this bike, and that combined with the performance that it gives. And it's just a really good combination of what Harley-Davidson does well. Combine that with, the high performance technology it has in it. So here's some statistics here, guys. So the fuel capacity is 5 gallons. It wasn't always that way. That got bumped, I want to say like 2007 or 8 or something like that. So the engine is the liquid cooled Revolution 60 degree V-twin. So it's 60 degree, not 45 degree like the other air-cooled engines that Harley-Davidson is famous for. So here's something kind of interesting. The bore is 4.13 inches and the stroke is 2.835 inches. So you've got a larger bore than stroke. So this is a over square engine, which Harley-Davidson is notorious for their under square engines, where the stroke is longer than the bore. So brakes, 4-piston front and rear calipers. The torque, so 83.4 foot-pounds of torque. The statistic that Harley-Davidson does not list on their website on any of their bikes is horsepower. This bike puts out about 125 horsepower. So I'm going to use Harley-Davidson's comparison tool here and compare the specs on a few different bikes. So the first bike I'm going to be comparing it to is the 2017 Street Rod 750. The Street Rod has the Revolution X engine in it. The V-Rod is the Revolution engine. The Revolution X engine is a derivative of the V-Rod engine. So a lot of the same technology there. Fully water-cooled bike, overhead cams. The V-Rod is a dual overhead cam, whereas the Street Rod is a single overhead cam. So getting away from that push rod system that is so prevalent in the Harley-Davidson lineup and its air-cooled bikes. So yeah, let me get into some things here. I don't know why they didn't put the pricing on here, but like I said, the pricing is about $17,800 for the V-Rod, and then you've got $8,699 for the Street Rod, and then you've got $13,849 for the Street Bob. So, I mean, the Street Bob I just threw in there because I can compare 3 bikes, but the Street Bob really is nothing like these other 2 bikes. But it's interesting because, I think I mentioned this already, I think they're going to start to get away from the V rod. I think Harley thinks that it's just kind of run its course, and the demand is kind of diminishing more and more each year. And they're now taking that technology and putting it all into their more youthful, trying to attract younger riders type of a bike in the street rod and the street 500 and 750. So the rake and trail, guys, I would say is something pretty significant here. So the rake is 34, the trail 5.6 inches, which is a lot more than these other two bikes, especially the street rod. What that does for you is it gives you a smoother ride going in a straight line going down the highway. You're going to have a lot less of that jittery front wheel. So the V-Rod does do really well going down the freeway at high speeds. I mean, you really feel like it has a very solid ride. But the more dramatic rake you have on a bike, it also reduces your nimbleness and the handling. So something that the street rod does quite a bit better than the V-Rod is just a real nimble, agile bike. And that's because it was built for traffic splitting and carving and real maneuverable urban bike. So I'm putting out the engine again. So the V-Rod is the liquid cooled Revolution 60 degree V-twin, and the street rod is the high output Revolution X engine. So the power that the V-Rod puts out is far superior to the street rod, for several reasons. The displacement for one. So here's is kind of interesting too. The compression ratio, you got 11.5 to 1 on the V-Rod and 12 to 1 on the street rod. So they really are squeezing every ounce of power out of the 750cc on the street rod. But yeah, the V-Rod, you got 1250 cc's, and the street rod is, like I said, only 750 cc's. So yeah, the street rod produces significantly less power than the V-Rod does. The V-Rod, like I said, it produces about 125 horsepower, and that's close to red line, over 8,000 RPM. So here's an article and part of the website that showcases the fact that Harley-Davidson is now using their street platform as their NHRA bike. For the longest time, Harley-Davidson has absolutely dominated with their drag bike, their V-Rod at the drag strip. And now they're getting back into the flat track. They used the XR 750 as a flat track bike for a long time. Now they're just 100% using their street 750 as a flat track bike. Flat track is another thing that another race event that Harley-Davidson has dominated in the past 30-40 years as well. So yeah, Harley-Davidson definitely is in the racing scene. Contrary to popular belief, everybody thinks that Harley-Davidsons are slow, but Harley-Davidson actually makes very competitive racing bikes. So this bike has a 5-speed transmission, which is plenty. Right there, I was doing about 6,000 RPM in 4th gear, and I was between 70 and 80 miles an hour. Right as I hit 5th gear, I had to start slowing down. But I think the top speed on this bike is probably somewhere in the neighborhood of about 130 miles per hour. I don't really know if it's published anywhere, and I've never gotten the bike up that high, but I've done, you know, pretty good speeds on this thing, and it's really fast at even at high speeds. I mean, this thing pulls really good at high speeds as well. So it's just a really fun bike to just rip the throttle on. It's just really satisfying to, you know, open this thing up and just hear and feel the power of this thing. That being said, too, I will say that this engine sounds really good. It sounds nothing like the air-cooled 45-degree V-twin pushrod engines that most Harley-Davidsons have, but it sounds really good. A lot of guys will have me turn this bike on the floor just to hear it because they've never heard of V-Rod before, and a lot of people will be like, oh yeah, that definitely doesn't sound like a Harley-Davidson, and they get turned off right away. Well, it really sounds its best at a higher RPM out on the road. And Vance & Hines makes a pipe for the V-Rod that really wakes this thing up a lot, and it has a really good sounding engine. So, you know, the sound is definitely there for me because, you know, a lot of people, one of the things they love about Harley-Davidsons are the unique sound that it gives off. But as the name implies, this bike's kind of a hot rod type of a bike. The handling's okay on it, not the best, especially with that big 240 millimeter rear tire, but you know, just cranking on this thing in a straight line is a lot of fun. So the clutch on this thing is really nice. It's very easy to pull, and you also got a slipper clutch. Right here I was kind of demonstrating the slipper clutch a little bit, so I don't know if you could hear it, but you know, I downshifted and just pretty much dumped the clutch, and you know, you can feel the clutch slip as opposed to just letting the wheel like lock up and skid. I mean, it squeaks a little bit, but the slipper clutch definitely does its job. When you're shifting through the gears, as you reach the friction point and you almost release the clutch all the way out, you can kind of feel some pulsation in the clutch lever, like some feedback in there. And that's a similar feel that we feel with the Milwaukee 8 touring bikes now. And that's basically, you can feel the slipper clutch and the assist ramps in there as well to make the clutch really easy to pull. So power's great, especially good in a straight line. Handling is average, and that's mostly due to the big wheel, the rake in the front end. You know, this bike really is solid as a rock at high speeds on the freeway, and that's due to, you know, the rake and trail in it. So, you know, you can take it up in the canyons, but it's not the greatest bike in the world for the canyon runs. Better than some Harley, not as good as other Harley-Davidsons, but decent. But yeah, it's I mean, Harley-Davidson used it for years at the drag strip, and that's for a reason. You know, this thing is a great drag bike. So I'm gonna go to my favorite spot here for some lunch real quick, little Chipotle action. If you're someone that wants to buy a bike that's going to get just a ton of attention and it just looks amazing, this is definitely the bike to get. Seems like everybody always stops me and looks at this thing when I'm out riding it. Everyone wants to ask questions, and everyone's just always taking pictures of it and things like that. They've used it in a ton of movies. I think this has been in several different X-Men movies. A little while back, there was like this promotional sweepstakes thing where the X-Men, like Marvel, was giving away a V-Rod, and we actually gave away a V-Rod to a customer several years back. So guys, I gotta apologize about the resolution in this last shot of my video here. My GoPro Hero 5 has given me the most problems. I don't know if everybody experiences these problems with the Hero 5, but the picture quality is amazing, I will say. It's great for motorcycle footage as well, but I don't know if the software is just bloated with the screen on the back or what, but I have to restart my camera 2 or 3 times sometimes. Like the SD card is never reading properly. And so when I came back from lunch, after I was messing around with my camera, just trying to get it to film, and it just, you know, shuts off automatically, you know, with no reason or whatever. I finally got it to start recording, but somehow I must have just inadvertently changed the resolution on the camera. Anyways, I apologize about the black bars on the side, and yeah, the Hero 5 isn't the best camera I've ever used. The picture quality is good, but it's just really fickle and finicky and just has all kinds of issues. But anyways, back to the Harley-Davidson review. You guys aren't here for a GoPro review. So I'm going to try to get this thing back up on the freeway. That's where I really enjoy this bike, because it's one of those bikes that is just kind of a go fast bike, and you're having the most fun on it when you're going fast. So I was just kidding. Caltrain's shut down the on-ramp, so I won't be doing any more freeway for you guys. Sorry about that. Thank you, Caltrans. Anyways, the engine, like I said earlier, is 100% water cooled. So you don't have the typical heat coming up on you, especially at stoplights. On the day I rode this bike here, it was like between 95 and 100 degrees outside, so it was a very hot day. And sitting idling at a light, I was still fairly comfortable. So it was pretty good in that regard. You definitely do still feel quite a bit of heat. Like the exhaust throws off a lot of heat on this bike as well. But there's no vibration at all in the idling. This engine is all internally counterbalanced. The heat's not bad. Bikes like a Ducati and things like that, those bikes just roast your ass when you're sitting there. It gets really hot. There's not a whole lot of insulation between you and the pipe and the seat and the pipe. But on this bike, there's the heat's definitely bearable. It's not bad. The fit and finish on this bike is really good. It's what you'd expect from a Harley-Davidson. Hand controls, very minimal exposed wiring. Paint is extremely good. The hand controls are pretty much what you see on all your other typical Harley-Davidsons. Really good. The seat's great. You got this nice leather seat. Has this nice cupping shape in the back to really keep you planted in place when you're ripping on the throttle, which this bike is just fun to go fast, and it's just really fun to accelerate on this bike. The acceleration, just the power delivery on this bike it's addicting. It's just really fun. So yeah, fit and finish is great. The heads-up display, your instrument cluster is good. You got your RPM right there, which is a nice thing to have on a bike like this, where you're looking at your RPM, and I'm always curious as to what RPMs I'm running at. And you got your speedo right there and your fuel gauge as well. Passenger seat on this thing is a joke. You have to have a girl that is either really tough or someone that really likes you. If you're married, your girl will not ride on the bike on the back of this. She's not going to try to impress you, and she's not going to ride on the back. So you can get a passenger backrest for this thing. It looks really nice. It's really clean. The build quality is really nice. It comes with this nice, looks like aluminum luggage rack back there. It's really high quality, but it's not that comfortable. It doesn't give your passenger that much support, really. And it's not detachable either. Once it's on there, it stays on there. So you really got to decide if you're going to commit to the whole backrest thing. I would say if you're picking up girls, or if you've got a girlfriend, then I'd say, yeah, grab it and put her on the back. And since she's only your girlfriend and not your wife, she probably won't say anything. She'll probably just say that she enjoys it. But the seat's extremely thin in the back, and so you either have to have a girl that's like 110 pounds, or someone that's got a nice threshold for pain. Either that, or maybe you're not going to go very far. If you're only going to go like 15-20 minutes, you'll probably be okay. But this bike does come with passenger pegs, so it is passenger ready. Speaking of accessories and everything, the V-Rod is not on par with the offerings accessory wise that the other bikes have. Like your big twin bikes, your Softails, your Dynas, your touring bikes, they have a lot more accessories available for them. The V-Rod is kind of like the equivalent of any other brand out there as far as your availability for accessories. Something like an Indian or a Victory, or like a Ducati or something like that. A paper thin accessory catalog. There's not a whole lot offered for it. That's what you're going to see on a V-Rod. So if you're looking for a bike to customize, like a lot of guys want to do with the Harley-Davidson, this definitely is not your bike. You can get like seats, exhaust, and mirrors, foot pegs, grips. The simple little trinket stuff you can get for this bike, but the rest of the stuff, forget it. The lighting is okay on this thing. Really, Harley-Davidson should have stepped up a long time ago and put LEDs on this thing, but you got a halogen bulb in the front, you got these two LED turn signals in the back, you have a light on the fender that I believe is LED, but yeah, this thing should have had like an LED headlamp with, you know, the technology and, you know, the modern futuristic vibe that this bike is going for. So that about sums it up, guys. If you have any questions, as always, feel free to leave them in the comments section below. You know, overall, just to recap, I love this thing. I'd probably only buy it if I could afford like 2 or 3 Harley-Davidsons, and this would definitely be one of them. It wouldn't be my primary bike just because, and I sound like a broken record, but it doesn't fit me very well. I would recommend this bike, though, to the guy that just wants a beautiful piece of machinery that doesn't have to do hardly anything to it. He just wants to buy the bike and ride it. Someone that's just kind of do mostly local stuff. I mean, this isn't really a bike that you're going to want to get on and go cross country on or anything. And this is not a beginner's bike. Could a beginner learn on this? I guess maybe, but it's not a beginner's bike by any stretch. This is a bike that is kind of a motorcycle connoisseur's bike. Something that really embodies everything that's great about a Harley-Davidson with the fit, finish, style. The ergonomics is an upright ergonomic, but still has a really exhilarating performance to it as well. You do have to adjust the valves on this bike, which is a pricey service that, you know, a lot of the sport bikes have that, you know, cost you a pretty penny. But, you know, other than that, the thing's pretty bulletproof, man. You guys, you know, you can operate this thing and own this thing for, you know, a relatively decent price tag.